What's up guys, Julien here, and today we have another unboxing slash review type video for you guys on this channel. Today we're going to be unboxing the Hitbox arcade controller, specifically the fall 2018 edition of it. Recently they've updated to a detachable wire, I believe, so I ordered one as I was looking for a new arcade stick for my fighting game endeavors, and this is the one I fell into. Now what's particularly interesting about this arcade stick is that instead of having a joystick, it actually has buttons instead for the directional input. So it has 4 buttons for the 4 different directions, and you can combine 2 of them in order to get 8-way type directional input. Now all these buttons are actually Sanwa Deshi real arcade buttons, as well as a plexiglass top and a metal case, along with a 3-meter cable. So without further ado, I'm going to open it, and then we're going to inspect it a little bit more, as well as do a little review type situation later, as I will have used it by then. So to start off with, we just pretty much have the unit here. We'll put it down for now, and then inspect what else we have in here. Alright. So what comes in the box is a bunch of promotional stuff. You've got, you know, basically an instruction manual type situation here. It includes obviously which each button is, and of course this is the PS4 edition, I believe, so it should be able to be used on a PC as well. And it shows different inputs of Ryu using Hadoken and obviously the uppercut Shoryuken. And here's the wire. We've got it's just open, but it's a braided cable, which is very nice. And of course we have the input on one side, USB on the other. So let's get to the unit here. So it's actually a lot smaller than I expected it to be. I thought that it would be a lot larger based off of some of the sizes of other arcade sticks, one of which that I own, and 2, you know, I've seen some on the internet. It's a lot smaller and compact, which is nice, actually. And of course, it's very portable. It's pretty cool. And the buttons, of course, are a lot smaller as well. It actually has, for the majority of the buttons, except for one, you have the 24mm Sanwa Deshi buttons, and you have one large, which I believe is the 30mm Sanwa Deshi button. Now they give you red and white buttons to go with the sort of color scheme, the color scheme being black and white as well. And you know, overall it's very nice build quality. It's pretty heavy, I would say. I don't know the exact weight, but I'll put it in the description below. But it does seem to have very, very sharp edges, I would say, on everything, including the plexiglass, I believe. It's a little rough. It's not too rough, actually. The plexiglass is actually a little more rounded, but the metal on the corners is actually a little sharp, I would say, definitely. But overall, pretty nice build quality. Of course, you have 4 buttons here that sound a little bit clickier than your Sanwa Deshi buttons on the top, and those would be share options, PS button, and the touch control button. And then of course you have on the other side your you know, connection cable situation going on. You'll find that the detachable cable makes a very satisfying click when plugged in, but I'm not sure if my mic will pick it up actually. And once it makes that click, it's more or less secure. As you can see, it's a little wobbly, although that should not really affect the, you know, signal that's being put in. And of course you can't pull it out once that click has been made. If you want to release it, however, you'll have to pull this attachment back. You can see here, this moves in and out. That being said, This seems like a fairly sturdy material, but it could probably get crushed if you're not careful. You know, I'm not sure what it looks like. It's made out of aluminum. I could be wrong. Could be stainless steel. That's probably more likely, come to think of it. It has 5 pins on the hitbox side of the thing, which are clearly, I don't know if this is in focus, sorry, which are clearly, housed by this encasing here. So they shouldn't get damaged if you just put it in your bag. But they could be damaged if something gets in there, maybe a pen or something like that. So it's something to keep in mind. That being said, the other interesting thing is that you can customize your hitbox top panel, which is really nice. I believe it's just a piece of paper under here that you can, obviously design yourself. I personally like the minimalist design of just white, but that could get a little messy with wear and tear, obviously. But also an interesting thing that they've included, because they know that so many people like to customize, is they have these four removable rubber studs here, along with two Allen key screws as well, which are really easy to remove. So that being said, I'm going to spend some time with the hitbox and see if I really truly like it. If there's any outlying things that I might not like too much about the hitbox. Obviously, you need to spend time with your fight stick in order to get used to pulling off various complex moves in fighting games, such as like Tekken 7 or Street Fighter 5. Soul Calibur 6 just came out, so I'm going to test it out in that as well. I'll try to do some camera shots of me using the hitbox, of my hands using the hitbox, to see what's a comfortable position to hold my hands, which hand and which finger should be pushing which button, because there are so many more buttons now to push, and that type of situation. I'm not the best fighting game player, but I do like all these fighting game controllers and that type of thing. So we'll see what I can pull off. If I can pull off anything more interesting and difficult to use than I would not be able to do with a fight stick consistently, such as Korean backdashing. I hear it's very easy on the hitbox and that type of thing. So we'll come back. Obviously it'll be quick for you guys, just an edit like that, but it'll take some more time for me to figure it out. Alright, what's up guys, Julien here, and I've spent about a week with the Hitbox arcade fight stick so I could get a better understanding of whether or not this is, worth your money. So I actually have to preface this with, I did run into a lot of trouble connecting my Hitbox to my PlayStation 4 or my PC, and that was because that I later found out I had to open up the hitbox, and there was the connector connecting. It's in this general area on the other side, obviously. The connector that connects the breakout connector here to the cable, that connector connects to the motherboard, which is right here. I'm not exactly sure what type of fight stick motherboard they have in there, or if you even call it a motherboard, but the connector there actually had a lot of glue residue on an excess amount of glue, and it actually prevented it from really connecting with it. So I had to apply a little bit of pressure onto that, and since then it really has not given me much of a problem. All the inputs work and it's fine. But that being said, this is a small company as far as I'm aware, Hitbox Arcade. I believe they self-assemble all of these by hand, so I will cut them a little slack there, but out of the box it did not work at all. So I had to I'm gonna throw that out there. That might be a problem going in the future, but I highly doubt it. I feel like they have maybe they were just rushed, and I happened to get one of a poorly assembled arcade stick, but it does work now, and I didn't really have to do much effort. Otherwise though, opening it up, it did. I'll show some pictures of it obviously on screen now, of what the problem was, but they have some pretty nice wire management in there, and it's fairly easy to assemble and of course, disassemble if you want to mod it yourself. That being said, the Hitbox is a pretty interesting controller. It's so, just to go out to explain here if you're not aware, the red buttons are your directional inputs. So this is left, this is down, this is right, and this button here, the biggest button, is in fact up. And we're going to be going through a couple of fighting games here that I have on my PS4. I'm playing on PS4 right now. Although this does obviously work with PC, but I don't have as many fighting games on PC. That being said, this is an interesting layout. So if you want to do diagonally down, you have to press these two buttons. If you want to do diagonally back, you have to do these two buttons. But what this allows you to do, because it's buttons instead of a joystick, you can press two buttons at the same time. So this is explained much better on other videos, but I'll try my best to explain it. Basically, when two buttons are inputted in Tekken, at least, left and right, they cancel each other out. But if you were to press up and down, you'd always get the up input. So there's a specific technique called Korean backdashing in Tekken, which a lot of the pros use, and that's basically canceling your backdash, which is just obviously back, with a crouch. So you're crouch canceling your backdash. That becomes a lot easier to do on the fight stick, and I was previously not that great at using a fight stick in Tekken because I was not that great at inputting backdash on player 1 side, and of course even on player 2 side it becomes even more difficult. On the fight stick, however, the Hitbox, however, it's a lot easier to do. All you have to do is hold back, and because you can cancel out, because this holding right inputs right, and then if you let go of right, you end up getting back again. So you see, if I double tap right, I get a backdash, which is interesting, while holding back. So you can manipulate, you can use this to your advantage by quickly tapping down and right while holding back, as you can see. So you'll notice that I'm actually hitting the tips of the buttons. So these buttons are actually fairly sensitive. There's Sanwa-deshi parts, so that's very good. You don't have to push them down so far before you end up getting a register of the button being pressed. That's really awesome because it means you can lightly tap them like this, and that allows you to get the input a lot faster. If you watch the developer of the Hitbox explain this, obviously they explain it much better, but you'll see in their video that they're just pushing the buttons like this. Obviously you can do it that way, and I would highly suggest you practicing enough to get to this point where you can do it this way, but if you can see, it's not coming out as fast, and that's because I'm fully depressing the buttons. So that's something to work on, but for now I can just lightly tap it and get a Korean backdash, which is something I was previously unable to do. Otherwise, all the buttons work. I can't really complain. Get your combos going, and big damage. It's pretty cool. Again, another thing I have to complain about comes up in Soul Calibur or a game like and complain, I mean this is something I'm just not used to. In games where there are a block button, such as Soul Calibur, where you hold down X, and again, all these buttons are not labeled, so you have to be familiar with fight sticks to understand what's going on here. Square, triangle, X, circle, R1. But that being said, in games like Mortal Kombat or Soul Calibur, where there's a block button, it becomes a problem that this up button is here. So I like to, and I've seen a lot of people online suggest that you use your first three fingers on your left hand to control these buttons, and then use your right hand to control, obviously, the face buttons and the up button here. So they've made this button as larger than the other buttons because they want to give you the option to press it with your left or your right hand. Obviously, they're fairly simple and, of course, comfortable button layout here, but that being a problem is pushing this button when you're used to pushing this button with for blocking. And we'll go into Soul Calibur, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so now we're in Soul Calibur, and there's one thing I really wanted to point out here. Obviously, I mean, having the button here the up button is fine here. I've found it very simple and easy to, mix up my movement. It becomes pretty quick. Obviously, with a fight stick, control stick, it's the same way, I would say. You can control very easily with your hand. Movement in this game is very fluid, and that's one thing I really like about it. But because Soul Calibur has the X button by default, your guard button here, I'm typically used to having my hand shifted a little bit up here to guard here. So that means, I need my hands up here, but that would mean that these buttons also need to be bigger or further down. So I'm used to playing with 30mm buttons that are typically this size, so my hand is typically up here. But if I feel this button, obviously your mind's in the game, I think that my hand is in the right position right here, based on just in-game, the heat of the moment, right? So I'm gonna end up pushing this button, which might end up, valuable for me because I sidestepped an attack, but when I really wanted to block it, which would be just pushing this button. So it's just something I wanted to point out. It's something I have to get used to play this game, but it's fairly straightforward. Like I said, switching switching to the hitbox was not that difficult because it's not if you're switching from a fight stick to the hitbox, I don't think the only thing you have to get over in a mental barrier in your mind is the positioning of this button. I think it makes much more sense to move this button up here, and then obviously move this down. Of course, that's something that Hitbox Arcade has to figure out for themselves. I think they have clearly chosen this style of play, but it's just a mental barrier to get over in your mind. Otherwise, it's fairly simple. We'll go over into Street Fighter now to show you how simple it is to do things like Hadoken and Shuriken, and obviously all those quarter circle and Shuriken motions that a lot of fighting games have adopted. And then we'll go over into Dragon Ball FighterZ, another popular fighting game. Alright guys, so now we're here with Street Fighter. This is the biggest fighting game in Capcom's library, of course. But it's, as you can see, movement is fairly simple. You just double tap. You can get a quick double tap. Depending on how fast you are with a fight stick, it can vary. This might increase your tech skill type situation. You can crouch really quickly. But of course, the standard motions in Street Fighter are very easy to do. As you can see, what you do is you roll your fingers across, down, and then you have to make sure these two are depressed at the same time, and you want to end with the right, and then push the button, obviously, at the right time. It's very, very simple to do a Hadoken. I found that Shurikens are a little more, obviously, a little more difficult for me, but I think with a little practice, I don't really practice at this game at all. I typically play Tekken and Soul Calibur now, of course, it just came out, but very simple to do as well. Obviously, it's just forward and then a Shuriken motion. So that's all it is, really. And of course, I didn't pick a character. Sorry, he does kicks, right? I didn't pick a character that had a quarter circle, half circle motions, but that is just as simple as, Hadoken. You would just roll across all three buttons and do that, and then push the button, obviously. But kicks. I really haven't played this game in a long time, but that being said, you know, it's pretty much the same as a fight stick, except in this game, obviously jumping is a lot more relevant than in Tekken or Soul Calibur. Obviously, they're used in those games at certain moments, but I believe jumping is way more important. So that being said, your positioning of your hand is going to be way more important here. So you have to either use one hand to jump, or you have to use two hands to jump. And you have to push two buttons at the same time. If I were to push up and then to the right, obviously I'm exaggerating it here, but if I'm off by a couple frames, you know, I'm going to just get a neutral jump. So I think it makes you, you know, it requires a much more precise input to hit both these buttons at the same time. Obviously, it's the same as, you know, hitting a grab. You know, it's something that we're all used to if you've used a fight stick before. Otherwise, you know, it is what it is. So that being said, that's Street Fighter. It works. Can't complain. That's about the breadth of knowledge I have with Street Fighter. It's not very good at it. I believe they actually just patched it, so there's a lot less input delay, which is really cool. I might check it out in the future. But there is one last really popular fighting game that encompasses the third genre of fighting games, anime fighting games, and that's Dragon Ball FighterZ. So we'll check that out there, because there's one technique that that is very common in anime fighting games, and that's air dashing, which will be actually fairly easy to do on the Hitbox. The other thing I wanted to say is maybe it's just me and the wiring of my mind, but sometimes I get a little mixed up which button to be pressing to block. And on a fight stick, I think it's a little more intuitive for me because I'm moving my whole hand to block. You know, I'm holding back on the fight stick or left because I know which side my opponent's on. But I can get a little mixed up which button to be pressing to hold back or forward. If, you know, I get cross up, I need to be holding left now, or I need to be holding right now. So that's another rewiring you have to get into in order to figure out what's going on and, you know, accelerate your gameplay. So I'll switch over to Dragon Ball FighterZ now. Alright guys, so we're back with our last game here. We've got Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, the world's most popular fighting game at the moment. It's really awesome. Go pick it up. It's on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, you know, the type of thing. But that being said, this game is mostly about, and most anime fighters, as far as I know, I'm not that familiar with all of them, is about, you know, the primary form of opening up your opponent is a dash in the air. So if I'm sucking at it, it's because I suck at it. But because you can just double tap the button really quickly, it actually is much easier to do on a hitbox. So as you can see, I'm holding up forward. You know, up forward is how you jump forward, but you can dash in the air there. And if if you practice enough, which some of you will, I don't think I will, because I don't want to. No, I'm kidding. This game's awesome. But you can see that because I have this inputted, two buttons at the same time, and I let go of one and then press this button again, if I do it fast enough, then I only have to push the right or left once I'm in the air, as opposed to twice, which you can do just to be sure, but you can get that opened up. You know, I'm not sure what the follow-up would be, but that being said, you know, that's how quick it is. It's very easy to do. You know, I literally just learned how to do this today. So, I mean, obviously, it can be a little difficult to do on a fight stick because you have to do up forward and then double tap left or right, obviously. And that can be a lot to get off in the air, and that's actually why I'm very bad at these games. Not to mention a lot of the combos involve, double jump or jump canceling. That's a huge part of these games, and I never got spent enough time with these types of games to learn a lot of that type of stuff. So I can't obviously offer you guys a sick-ass combo video right now, so I'm sorry. But that being said, let's talk about the usefulness of this controller. It's pretty cool. It's a novel way to play, but is it really worth the money? So this controller costs $200 US dollars, or at least that's what I purchased it from their website. It's a very slick design. I think it looks really great. It can be, it's white, but this is plexiglass, so it can be a little bit of a fingerprint magnet. If you're into that. So they do actually provide you with a microcloth here. You can see I've used it a little bit, so it's nice to keep it clean and whatever. But this being $200, you have to put it in the tier of the $200 fight stick. You have to compare it to those types of fight sticks. This fight stick's made with quality products. These are parts. These are Senwadeshi parts. These are actually my favorite buttons to play with, so I gotta give them a plus there. It's great. It looks great. It's compact. It's actually pretty portable because it doesn't have the stick pointing up, so you can just throw it in a bag. Detachable cable is great. A thing I would want, though, however, is, and of course it gives you all the buttons, start, select, start, share, touchpad, PS button up here, which we went over in the video, but the one thing I would like, though, which they've sort of remedied here with a detachable cable, although I know previous versions of this did not have a detachable cable, is a cable compartment. Where am I going to put this cable? It's just an extra part to be carrying around. And a lot of fight sticks at the $200 level give you a cable compartment to store your cable. So you don't even have to worry, you're just carrying around one unit. Although now I have to worry about the cable. Am I going to damage the cable in my bag? That type of thing. So that's one thing, and I believe a lot of other fight sticks give you at this price level, entry price level, give you a headphone port. Although I'm sorry for the honking outside, but they give you a headphone port if I'm not mistaken. Some of them do. That's the type of thing that could be included. For other fight sticks, a lot of them include a turbo function. This does not, although I don't really care for that. But that being said, this is a pretty good product. It's solidly built, and it works. Of course, I had a little problem in the beginning getting it working, but for now it works, and it works with PC, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 3. Are you going to purchase this now? Is it worth the entry price now? Because we might be moving on to PlayStation 5 and whatever the next Xbox is going to be called. Moving forward, this will not be backwards compatible with those consoles, as far as I know. Well, that is yet to be seen, but probably won't be backwards compatible, and so that's something to consider. That being said, it will work with your PC, so that's fine. The other thing is, what are you using this for? Are you trying to be a competitive fighting game? You're trying to go to EVO and win EVO? I don't believe many fighting game community members really endorse this box. Only a select few people have really picked it up and started adopting using it. So will there be some advanced tech coming out from the Hitbox? Well, that is yet to be seen. Next thing up is it is loud. So if you're going to tournaments, and you're doing a half circle motion, you got to do that. That's pretty loud, right? So your opponent may end up picking up on that, and if you have to do, I don't know what Zangief's motion is, what it's an entire circle, right? So you have to push all 4 of these buttons just to get an input, right? So, and then let alone do a super. So I don't know. That type of thing is something to consider. This is a loud controller. Of course, it doesn't matter online. but it does matter in tournament, and that's something that you really have to factor in when you're purchasing this. Otherwise, from that, it does give you it gave me more of an advantage now because I can backdash. Well, not necessarily every time, but I can backdash much more consistently with this controller. So that being said, I think if you're really trying to, if you're a collector, great purchase. I think this is a really cool controller. If you're a collector of fight sticks, I think this is worth it. If you're into, a new way of playing, then I think this is it was a really fun experience. I had a great time playing these fighting games again, like Tekken 7 and games like that again. And it really made me, like, oh, I'm learning a new character, even though I was playing the same character, Asuka. With this, I felt like I was learning a new character. So it was really fun for me, a fun experience. So if you want to make these games, feel new again, maybe pick up this controller. I think it's a really good product. It works, and it does as advertised. Of course, the other option that I've seen a lot of online are modding your fight stick to become a hitbox. So that could be another option that will probably be cheaper in the long run. This is $200, keep in mind. If you can mod your own fight stick to get rid of the stick and make it a hitbox with four buttons, maybe that's something you want to look into. So go check those videos out. Maybe I'll get a link in the description below. But yeah, so thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you out. I had a lot of fun with this controller. I think it's worth purchasing if you're really into fighting games. I don't think it's worth purchasing if you're just a casual player and you're alright with playing with pad or just a regular fight stick. That being said, I and my partner in crime, Yvonne, on this channel, we upload a podcast every single Monday, which you can check out, where we talk about various things that interest us, such as politics, history, and of course video games. So we always talk about video games and things like that on our podcast. You can catch it on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. And we also like to play Overwatch, so you can check out a bunch of Overwatch content on our YouTube channel, and we like to upload Let's Plays every now and then of video games that we are having fun playing, so go ahead and check those out if you have the time. Otherwise, I'll be searching the internet for some more interesting products. If you have any interesting products, that gaming related products that you want me to unbox and review, definitely get in contact with me either in the comments section below or on Twitter. And otherwise, I hope you guys have learned a lot about the Hitbox. I think it's a cool product, and until next time, I'll catch you guys then. Peace out.